Alright, what am I going to review today? I have so many movies, and honestly, way too many to choose from. I mean, I guess I could review Alien Covenant maybe, but I don't really know. What else can I say about it other than the fact it's not good? No, don't want to do that. Man, Predator movies, the alligator people, that could be a good one, but there's just too many to choose from. I don't know. I really can't decide on a movie. How about video games? I mean, I haven't reviewed a video game before, and honestly, I think it could be quite fun. I mean, I shouldn't delve too far down the rabbit hole of video games. I mean, there's so many to review. I mean, like Legend of Zelda, Mario, Mass Effect, Resident Evil, all that kind of stuff. And I think that would be a little bit too much, but especially because there are so many people who already talk about all those video games, but what about movie-based video games? Movie-based video games, that's something I really never thought I would talk about, but to be completely honest, it's actually quite an interesting phenomena when it comes to video games that are based off of movies. Usually the quality's really not that good, they're just complete cash-ins of what the actual product is. Sometimes the games have nothing to do with the movies that they're based off of. They just have the title and then that's it. Don't get me wrong, there might be some slithers of, some kind of similarity between the two products, but in all honesty, 9 times out of 10, you usually wind up with a product that you go, what? So what better movie franchise to talk about than Friday the 13th? I know, I'm a day late, I'm sorry. But what do you expect when you're a stay-at-home YouTuber with a baby? If you've been following me all this time, you guys should know I am a huge Friday the 13th fan. It is arguably my favorite horror franchise, right next to the Universal Monsters. Yeah, it's kinda dumb and cheesy, but honestly, that's part of the fun of Friday the 13th. And one area we have yet to explore are the Friday the 13th video games. Friday the 13th games in particular do have a tendency to get a lot of backlash as to whether or not they're incredibly hard, they are incredibly poor in design, buggy, or, just absolutely no fun to play whatsoever. So without further ado, these are the Friday the 13th video games. To start things off, we have Friday the 13th, which came out in 1985 by developer Domark, on platforms such as the Commodore 64, the Amstrad CPC, and the ZX Spectrum. The plot reads, you and 9 friends are spending the summer holidays at Crystal Lake Holiday Camp, miles away from civilization, unaware that Jason Voorhees has a filthy grotto close to the camp. At midnight on the first day, while unpacking, you notice a bloodstained mask, and with horror, you realize that Jason is waiting. Terrified, you must protect your friends from the marauding Jason and finally dispose of him before he disposes of you. Now, the point of the game is you have to try and find out which of your friends is actually Jason Voorhees, which I do not recall that plot in any of the movies. But this did come out the same year as Friday the 13th Part 5 A New Beginning, which there was obviously an imposter Jason throughout the movie who did turn out to be Roy, but this game clearly says it's Jason. So maybe this was a foretelling of Jason Goes to Hell? I think to start things off, why on earth do we start in a church? When was there ever a church in the Friday the 13th series? Never mind before Part 5. Also, I really love that the music in this game is Toccata by Bach. I mean, yeah, it's stereotypical horror music, but at the same time, just what? So the point of the game is you have to find Jason by basically bashing an item over your friend's head. No, seriously. You just go around the game, you come across your camp counselor friends, and then you bash them over the head with something until one of them turns into a guy in a black outfit, and then that guy is Jason, and then you kill that character. That's it. I mean, it's a very simple premise and a very simple game, but who thought it was a good idea to play a horror game where your main goal is to grab a weapon, bash your friends over the head, and then that's when you realize, oh, you're the killer after I bashed you over the head. Not finding clues, not trying to do investigations or anything like that. It's literally bash your friends over the head and then they will reveal themselves as Jason. Imagine having to do that in real life. Oh, what a lovely day for not getting hit over the head with something. When the game came out, it mainly got negative reviews, mainly for just being a boring video game and, of course, being nothing like the source material. Jumping to the 8-bit era, we now have Friday the 13th on the NES, which came out in 1989 and published by the absolutely wonderful LJN. Unlike the previous game, there was only one port of this game, so it didn't appear on any other console except for the NES. I first heard about Friday the 13th on the NES by who else but this guy. Now, as you know, I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan, so I had to try this game out. So I bought it, put it in, and I'm greeted to this! Okay, that's actually a pretty cool NES opening screen, you have to admit it. We are then introduced to the map of Camp Crystal Lake, as well as our counselors, George, Mark, Paul, Laura, Debbie, and Chrissy. Each of these counselors have different strengths and weaknesses. The two strongest counselors are Mark and Chrissy, who can run fast and jump high, whereas the other counselors have a mixture of either being able to jump high and walk slow, or are able to run fast but can't jump high. The first task we are given is to light the fireplaces. Ignore this, it makes no sense, and it doesn't help at all. Then you go out into the world and you fend off zombies by pelting them with rocks. Now we all know how infamous the rock is in this game. The only way you can actually hit them is by ducking. However, eventually you can find other weapons in the game. Usually you can find a knife easily if you just jump randomly and then a knife will appear. And if you kill a certain amount of zombies, you eventually can get a machete, which when you encounter Jason, this will actually become very useful. There are other weapons as well, such as a hatchet, a pitchfork, and a torch to literally light Jason on flipping fire. However, these weapons are incredibly hard to acquire. The main way to get the hatchet and the pitchfork are by going into the caves and finding Jason's mother's floating head and trying to kill her head. After defeating her, you can get the hatchet on the first day, you can get her sweater on the second day and get basically a little bit of an extra defense against Jason's attacks, or you can get the pitchfork on the last day, and the pitchfork deals a severe amount of critical damage against Jason. But then there's the torch, which is honestly the best item in this game. However, it is the hardest to find because I don't know why, but it seems I can only find it on random playthroughs. As you start acquiring the many different weapons and sometimes random potions throughout the camp with the counselors, it is during this time when Jason will either attack the camp counselors who are in the cabins, or he will attack little children who are out on the actual lake. It is during this time where you have to run to one of the locations, either to the camp counselor or to the children out on the lake, and defeat Jason before he kills either the camp counselor or all of the children. Which is a whole nother thing about Friday the 13th, because Jason has never killed children. However, you don't necessarily have to run to one of the counselors. All you have to do is just go into one of the small cabins and then pick one of the other counselors who is being attacked by Jason. Then you can go ahead and defeat Jason in the cabin and then move on from there. You do have to go to the children who are in the cabins by the lake, however, as there is no way to teleport there as one of the counselors, and Jason will not leave until the children are killed. When you do encounter Jason in one of the cabins, it basically becomes Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Yeah, this is a very weird way to fight Jason, who for some odd reason is in a purple jumpsuit and a baby blue hockey mask. Oddly enough, the NES Jason became so popular that NECA even made an action figure out of it. You basically have to fight Jason several times throughout each day and basically just go ahead and whittle his health down to nothing so that way you can progress to the next day. You can also encounter Jason out on the road. Sometimes he will randomly appear as you are just walking along, all the zombies or whatever what are attacking you will disappear, and then Jason will show up and just wail on you. This is actually a good opportunity to really try and get a lot of Jason's health down. However, there is no way to dodge his attacks. Now, when the game first came out, there was a lot of negative criticism towards this game, and although I do really enjoy this game as a Friday the 13th fan, I do usually tend to agree with a lot of the criticisms people have towards it. One of the criticisms that I have for this game is it is incredibly tedious and can get really, really boring. Honestly, I find one of the biggest problems with this game is the fact that you just have to grind and grind and grind all 6 of the counselors to get them to have basically some of the best weapons and find random health potions all throughout the map before encountering Jason throughout most of the days. And that can be a huge problem because when you do encounter Jason on the first day, he's honestly not that difficult to defeat. The only way you can die from Jason is complete boredom. But sometimes there can be a little bit of input lag from the controller when you're trying to dodge Jason's attacks. When you encounter Jason in the cabins, his speed is increased randomly, so there are times when his attack speed will be very similar to the first day, but then he will have random jolts of energy, where he will then just go ahead and just wail on you, and if you don't dodge him fast enough, you will lose a lot of health and potentially lose a counselor or two. On the third day, this is when things are no longer fair. Jason is now hyped up on Red Bull, and whenever you encounter him in a cabin, he is just purely wailing on you and wailing on you and wailing on you, and there is almost no way for you to actually land a good hit on him so that way he can exit the cabin. On the third day, it is honestly best to try and meet Jason face to face on the road and just try to attack him with as many counselors as possible so that way you can kill him. But when it comes time when he attacks the little children out on the lake, it is almost impossible to get him out, and actually this is where a lot of people normally lose to him. That's it! Have to put the stupid cheat codes, have to use the stupid Game Genie just to beat the stupid game. There! I beat the game. I don't care if I had to use the Game Genie. This last day is a pain in the butt to defeat. However, this is not the last that the NES technically has to offer. Pack and Sack Dave made a hack of the game where instead of the camp counselors, you actually get to play as Jason Voorhees himself, slaughtering teens through the camp, and eventually get to take on Freddy himself. There is also another version of this game where it is literally Freddy versus Jason, where you get to play as Freddy and you get to battle Jason. Now I know what a lot of you people are asking. When's Jason going to be in a fighting game? Now, I don't know who was asking that, but people were asking it. Jason did actually make a guest appearance in Mortal Kombat X, and I mean, to be completely honest, he's my favorite fighter in the entire roster, never mind the original, Mortal Kombat characters. Jason Voorhees is practically a beast in this game, with 3 different variants where you can pick and choose which kind of fighting styles that he has. You can even dress him up as Roy, the fake Jason. Oh my gosh, you can even relive the famous comic book storyline of Jason versus Leatherface. I wonder how Leatherface feels about this. Yeah, that's about my reaction too. And, as everyone knows, since then, we have not had a good Friday the 13th video game. Okay, obviously I lie. Friday the 13th, the game, came out for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, and then eventually it did get a port on the Nintendo Switch. If you're a Friday the 13th fan, this is the game for you. Friday the 13th, the game, is basically an online multiplayer experience. You either get to play as a camp counselor along with 6 other players who are also playing camp counselors as you try to escape the camp before Jason kills all of you. Or you get to play as the infamous Jason and hunt down each and every one of the camp counselors before they escape. All the Jasons that you get to play as are Jasons from the movies. There are a few exceptions missing, and one that I will talk about later that unfortunately was not included. If you pre-ordered the game, you would also be able to play as the special Tom Savini Jason, who, the background story on this Jason is, this is the Jason that escaped from hell. And honestly, I love this version of Jason. I unfortunately was never able to get him. I really wish I did, but it's rather unfortunate I just wasn't able to at the time. And with the counselors, most of them are kind of just mainly based off of either stereotypes or basically based off of characters from the movies. However, there are a few which are actual characters from the movies, such as Shelly and Fox. Each of the counselors have different strengths and weaknesses. When it comes to the counselors, you have to try everything within your power to escape from Jason by either trying to put your car back together, putting a boat back together, or maybe just calling the police. Another thing that you can do is wait out the timer, but that one is a lot more risky compared to literally just trying to get away. Counselors can pick up items to defend themselves against Jason, can pick up pocket knives so that way if they get grabbed, they can go ahead and stab Jason before he does any killing blows to them. And there are so many other different things that you can try to do to either hide or defend yourself from Jason. Another really cool thing is if you are able to find a certain radio at the camp, you are able to call in Tommy Jarvis. So if one of the campers does wind up dying, that player will come back as Tommy Jarvis, so that way they can at least try to have a second chance to escape from the camp and help out the other counselors. Playing as Jason, though, I would argue is where the fun is at. Although playing as a counselor can be really fun, and honestly sometimes incredibly terrifying, you can lose a lot when you are the counselor and not really get as many experience points compared to playing as Jason. Jason himself also has a lot of tricks up his sleeves compared to the counselors. Jason can teleport, he can do the weird thing from Evil Dead, which by the way, was actually confirmed as an Evil Dead reference. He also has a stealth ability, which silences everything around him as he walks by the counselors. And last but not least, when a certain amount of time has passed in the game, he goes into rage mode. So, you can finally live out your dream of basically becoming the Kool-Aid Man as Jason Voorhees and literally just break crap down.
Oh yeah, here comes Kool-Aid, here comes Kool-Aid, gonna save the day.
Another cool thing with Jason, though, is you also have the ability to set traps around the camp. For example, if you think a counselor is going to bring either a battery or maybe a can of gas to the car, you can set some bear traps around the car. So they will get trapped, you'll get notified, and then you can immediately hunt down that counselor and kill them. You can also play offline, just playing as Jason and going around killing camp counselors, if that's something that you would rather do, or if you don't have PlayStation Plus. Another thing that you can do is do the challenge modes offline, which basically are recreations from scenes from the movies. This is actually kind of cool, because you're able to play as Jason and literally reenact scenes from the movies and reenact kills from the movies. If you truly are a fan of Friday the 13th, you have to go with this game. It is a lot of fun. However, if you were to bring this game back home to your parents and then explain to your mother, "Don't worry, Mummy, I can fix him," this game has a lot of issues. Now, I know you just heard me praising the living crap out of this game, but the thing is, there are so many bugs and glitches in this game, it is absolutely ridiculous. I know that this was a crowd-funded game, and I know with a smaller company making this game, you're not going to be able to get basically AAA quality. However, I truly think that there is no excuse to all the problems that have happened with this game. There are many times when you kill a counselor, they'll glitch and do incredibly ridiculous things. If you're playing offline, there's times the computers don't even do anything. They literally stand there looking at you when you're playing as Jason. There have been times I'm playing online and I'm trying to perform a kill, but for some odd reason, no matter how many times I push the darn button to kill the counselor, for some odd reason, it just won't work. Maybe the game's trying to tell me something. The biggest problem to hit the game, though, is what happened when the lawsuit between Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham happened. When the rights for Friday the 13th were up in the air with the whole lawsuit that was happening, Gun Media were asked to stop all production on the game except for whatever bugs and stuff that they were doing to keep the game running. So basically, any DLC that they had promised that they were going to be doing was now officially over and done with. Which meant that the Jason X content that they promised that we were going to get for the game was basically not going to happen. Even though a lot of his assets were already made and everything, they were not able to produce him because of the lawsuit. Now, as you know, I do truly love this game, and even with all the bad things in it, I still think it's a lot of fun. But unfortunately, with the controversy surrounding the game and the fact that it's really not properly being supported anymore, once in a while we'll get like a double XP weekend or something like that, or, you know, once in a great while, whoever is in charge of the game now is fixing bugs. But to be completely honest, it's rather sad, but this game is definitely dead. There was one more Friday the 13th game to come out for mobile, and oddly enough, the Nintendo Switch. It's basically a puzzle kind of game where you get to play as Jason, and of course, kill camp counselors, but you have to do it in basically almost like a swipe kind of thing. You have to do it in a certain amount of moves, or you have to kill them basically by trying to figure out, okay, these are the moves that I have to make through this map in order to go ahead and kill them all. This game is actually kind of fun, and it's one that I have for the Nintendo Switch, and I play it quite often as just something to take my mind off of things. So there you have it. That's basically the history of Friday the 13th video games. Now, there are mods out there and fan games of Friday the 13th and whatnot, such as like the Pack and Sack game that I played for the NES. But that's really all there is for official Friday the 13th video games. And I have to say, I know people complain about movie-based video games a lot, but honestly, I had fun. I thought they were fine. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely problems, but honestly, I think this could be a fun thing to look into. More movie-based video games. Oh, shoot.